"Arthur, don't you dare step outside, you hear me? You'll die out there." But the old man was already pulling on his coat, his weathered hands trembling as he reached for the door handle. Through the frosted window, shadows were collapsing in the snow, human shapes going still against the white death outside. Before we go any further, I need you to do something for me. Hit that subscribe button right now, because this story is going to take you places you never expected. And when we get to the end, and trust me, you're going to want to stay until the very end, drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see just how far this story travels. Now let's get back to that frozen Montana night where everything changed. The wind hit Arthur Hale like a fist the moment he opened the barn door. 80 years old, 5'8", nothing but bone and gristle under his worn flannel jacket, he had no business being out in this. The blizzard had turned his farm into a white hell, the kind of storm that killed cattle and shut down highways, the kind that made grown men pray. "Come on, old man," he muttered to himself, squinting against the needles of ice tearing at his face. "Just get to the first one." The first body was 10 yards away. Might as well have been 10 miles. Arthur's boots sank into snow up to his knees with every step. His lungs burned. The cold was already working its way through his coat, through his skin, reaching for his bones. The man in the snow wore black leather covered in patches and chains. Hell's Angels, Arthur realized. The motorcycle club everyone in 3 counties feared. The ones decent people crossed the street to avoid. Arthur grabbed the man under the arms and pulled. Nothing. The biker was easily 220, maybe more, all muscle and dead weight. Arthur tried again, his back screaming in protest, his heart hammering against his ribs like it wanted out. "Move, damn you," Arthur gasped. "Move." The body shifted an inch, then another. Arthur's vision started to blur at the edges, black spots dancing in the white. His hands had gone numb inside his gloves. But he kept pulling, kept dragging 1 impossible inch at a time. When he finally got the first biker into the barn, he had maybe 5 minutes before his body gave out completely. That's what his brain told him anyway. The smart thing, the sane thing would be to close the door, get warm, and call for help in the morning. He counted 18 more bodies in the snow. "Sarah," Arthur whispered, his voice cracking. His wife had been dead 3 years now, but he still talked to her sometimes. "I know what you'd say. I know." She'd say the same thing she always said. "Arthur Hale, you do what's right even when it's hard, especially when it's hard." He went back out. The second biker was a woman, her face blue-white ice forming in her short dark hair. Arthur got her halfway to the barn before his legs gave out completely. He fell hard, his knee cracking against frozen ground, pain shooting up his spine. For a moment, he just lay there, the woman's unconscious body pressed against him, both of them sinking into the snow. "Get up," he told himself. "Get up, you stubborn old fool." His body didn't want to listen. His muscles had turned to ice. His heart was doing something irregular, something that scared him. But somewhere in the howling wind, he heard Sarah's voice, not real, just memory, but strong enough. "I didn't marry a quitter, Arthur Hale." He got up. Biker number 3 was so heavy, Arthur could only move him a few feet at a time, stopping every yard to catch his breath, to let the black spots clear from his vision. Biker number 4 had a knife on his belt that Arthur had to be careful not to cut himself on. Number 5 was bleeding from somewhere Arthur couldn't see, leaving a red trail in the white snow. Halfway through number 6, Arthur's heart did something that made him stop and press his hand against his chest, gasping. The rhythm was all wrong, too fast, then too slow, then a skip that felt like falling. "Not yet," he said through gritted teeth. "Not until they're all inside. You hear me? Not yet." The storm wasn't letting up. If anything, it was getting worse. The wind screamed across the open fields, carrying snow so thick Arthur couldn't see the farmhouse anymore, couldn't see anything but white, and the next dark shape waiting for him. Number 7, number 8, number 9. His hands weren't working right anymore. He couldn't feel his fingers, couldn't tell if he was gripping or not. He just hooked his arms under theirs and pulled, stumbling backward, falling, getting up, pulling again. Number 10 was just a kid, maybe 25, with a baby face under all the leather and chains. That one hurt something in Arthur's chest worse than his misfiring heart. The kid's lips were gray. Arthur couldn't tell if he was breathing. "Don't you die on me, son," Arthur said, dragging faster now, his body pulling from some reserve he didn't know he had. Don't you dare. He got the kid inside and checked for a pulse. There, faint but there. Arthur covered him with a horse blanket and went back out. The cold had stopped bothering him. That was bad. That meant hypothermia was setting in his body, shutting down its outer defenses to protect the core. Arthur knew this intellectually, but he couldn't seem to care. There were still 9 more people dying in his driveway. Number 11 fought him. Unconscious but thrashing some animal, part of the brain, still struggling against death. Arthur took an elbow to the jaw that split his lip, tasted blood mixing with snow. He held on anyway. Easy, he said, though the man couldn't hear him. Easy now, I got you. Number 12 was the biggest, yet 6 foot something and built like a bear. Arthur looked at the barn that seemed a mile away now and almost laughed. Almost cried. Maybe both. Sarah, I don't think I can do this one. But he was already bending down and already getting his arms under the massive shoulders. He pulled. Nothing. He pulled harder. The body moved half an inch. It took Arthur 20 minutes to move that one biker 30 yards. 20 minutes of pulling and resting his heart, doing things that would have sent a doctor running for the defibrillator. 20 minutes of talking to himself, to Sarah, to God if he was listening. When he finally got the big man inside, Arthur collapsed against the barn wall and just breathed for a while. His whole body was shaking. His clothes were soaked with sweat under his coat, which was worse than the cold. His heart was beating so hard, he could hear it in his ears, a drum that might stop any second. 7 more. 7 more bodies in the snow. You can quit now, he told himself. You got 12, that's more than anyone would expect. You can quit. But then he'd have to live with himself. He'd have to imagine their faces when spring came and the snow melted and someone found 7 frozen bodies in his driveway. He'd have to know he'd given up. He went back out. Number 13 was clutching a photograph in frozen fingers. Arthur saw it as he pulled the man toward the barn, a woman and 2 kids smiling. He held on tighter, pulled harder. Number 14 had a gray beard and looked about Arthur's age. Old man biker still riding at 80. Arthur felt a strange kinship as he dragged him through the snow. 15, 16, each one harder than the last, each one taking more out of him than he had to give. Arthur's vision was tunneling now, everything going dark around the edges. His left arm had gone numb. That was probably bad. Number 17 was another woman. Tiny thing couldn't have weighed more than 100 pounds, but Arthur could barely move her. His strength was completely gone. He was running on something else now, something beyond muscle and bone. Pure, stubborn will. He fell 3 times getting her to the barn. The 3rd time, he wasn't sure he'd get back up. Wasn't sure his heart would start again if he let himself stop. Arthur Hale, you finish what you start. Sarah's voice. Clear as day. He got up. 18 was already dead. Arthur knew it the moment he touched the cold skin, the absolute stillness. But he dragged the body inside anyway, laid it respectfully against the wall, closed the frozen eyes. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm so sorry. 1 more. Just 1 more. Number 19 was the worst because Arthur's body had completely given up by then. His legs weren't really working anymore. He couldn't stand up straight. He had to crawl part of the way, dragging the unconscious biker beside him through the snow. The barn was right there, 20 feet, 15, 10. Arthur's heart stopped. Just stopped like someone flipped a switch. He felt it happen, felt the sudden nothing in his chest, the absence of that familiar rhythm he'd lived with for 80 years. He was lying in the snow next to the last biker, his face pressed against the ice, and his heart wasn't beating. Time did something strange. Stretched out. He could see Sarah standing in the barn doorway, young again, the way she looked when they got married. She was shaking her head, smiling that smile that always meant he was being ridiculous. Not yet, Arthur. You're not done yet. His heart lurched. Once. Twice. Started beating again, angry and irregular, but beating. He pulled the last biker inside. When Arthur finally closed the barn door behind him, shutting out the howling storm, he had 19 leather-clad strangers laid out on his barn floor. 18 breathing, 1 not. And Arthur himself was pretty sure he was dying. His hands were useless frozen claws. He couldn't get them to work, couldn't unbutton his coat or grab the blankets he needed. He stood there shaking, staring at all these people he'd saved, wondering if they'd wake up to find him frozen solid beside them. Come on, old man, he muttered. 1 more thing. Just 1 more thing. He got his coat off using his teeth and elbows. Got blankets spread over the bikers one by one, his numb hands fumbling. Got his space heater dragged from the corner, the one he used for the animals in deep winter, and plugged it in. Then he made a fire in the old wood stove he kept for emergencies. It took him 30 minutes to get his frozen hands working enough to hold matches. 30 minutes of trying and failing, and trying again, the matches falling from his useless fingers. When the fire finally caught, Arthur sat down hard on a hay bale and just breathed. He looked at the people he'd saved. 19 hard cases, 19 members of a motorcycle club that made grown men nervous. In any other circumstance, Arthur would have locked his doors if he saw them coming up his driveway. "What did I just do?" he asked the empty barn. But he knew. Sarah knew. You didn't choose who to help based on their clothes or their reputation. You helped because they needed help. You saved lives because lives were worth saving. One of the bikers stirred, a big man, maybe 40, with a scarred face and tattoos running up his neck. His eyes open, confused, trying to focus. He looked at Arthur, at the barn, at his unconscious brothers and sisters laid out around him. "What?" His voice was rough, barely audible. "What happened?" "You crashed," Arthur said. His own voice didn't sound much better. "Storm took you down. I brought you in." The biker tried to sit up, couldn't manage it. He stared at Arthur like he was seeing a ghost. You pulled us in, all of us." 19, Ayer said. "Well, 18 now. I'm sorry, I couldn't save him." He nodded toward the still body in the corner. The biker looked, and something happened to his face. Grief, raw and immediate. "Hawk," the biker whispered. Then louder, anguished, "Hawk." Other bikers were starting to wake up now, groaning, coughing. A woman sat up fast, ready to fight, then winced and pressed a hand to her head. The kid Arthur had pulled and the young one, who looked 25, rolled over and vomited onto the barn floor. "Easy," Arthur said. "You're all hypothermic. Don't move too fast." "Who the hell are you?" the woman demanded, her hand going to her belt, where a knife should have been. Arthur had removed all the weapons while they were unconscious. Just seemed prudent. "Name's Arthur Hale. This is my barn." More of them were waking up now. 18 bikers in various stages of consciousness, all looking at the old farmer who'd saved them. Arthur could see the confusion, the suspicion, could see them trying to make sense of it. The big man with the scarred face, he seemed to be the leader, pushed himself up to sitting. His face was pale, his movements shaky, but there was authority in the way he held himself. The others looked to him. "I'm Silas Kane," he said, "president of the Hells Angels Montana chapter." He looked around at his people, taking inventory. His jaw tightened when he counted the bodies. "You pulled all of I out of the storm alone?" "Yes, sir." "How old are you?" 80 this past November." Silas stared at him for a long moment. Then he looked at his people, 18 living, 1 dead, and back to Arthur. "You know who we are. I know what the patches on your jackets say. And you helped us anyway." It wasn't a question, but Arthur answered anyway. Seemed like the right thing to do. One of the bikers, a young guy with a shaved head and wild eyes, laughed. It was a harsh, disbelieving sound. "The right thing, old man. Do you know what we've done? Do you know what we are?" "Don't know," Arthur said simply. "Don't much care. I saw people dying in my driveway. Couldn't just let that happen." "Why not?" the bald biker pressed. "Why risk your life for strangers, for us?" Arthur was quiet for a moment. He looked at the fire in the wood stove, at the storm still howling outside, at these dangerous people he'd saved. "My wife used to say something," he said finally. "She'd say, Arthur, kindness is tested when it's hardest. Anyone can be good when it's easy, but who you are shows up when helping costs you something." He met Silas's eyes. "Tonight it cost me something, but it would have cost me more to let you die." The barn went quiet except for the wind outside and the crackle of the fire. The bikers were looking at Arthur like he was some kind of alien creature they couldn't quite understand. The woman who'd woken up fighting spoke up, her voice softer now. "What's your name again?" "Arthur Hale." "I'm Reaper," she said. "And that man, you couldn't save Hawk. He was my brother, my actual brother, not just club brother." Her eyes were wet. "You tried to save him anyway. I'm sorry I couldn't do more." "You did more than anyone else would have," Silas said quietly. He was looking at Arthur with something like wonder. "You know what would have happened if anyone else in this county found us crashed in their driveway? They would have locked their doors and pretended they didn't see us. Let us freeze. maybe called the cops in the morning. That's their business, Arthur said. I did what I could live with. You almost died out there, another biker said. This one was older, gray-bearded, the one Arthur had felt kinship with. I watched you collapse, saw your heart stop. You were conscious, barely, couldn't move, couldn't speak. But I saw you drag me in, then go back out. Again and again. I've never seen anything like it. The young kid who'd vomited spoke up, his voice shaky. Why we're nobody to you? We're bikers. Hell's Angels. We're the people mothers warn their kids about. Arthur was tired, so tired. His body hurt in ways he didn't have words for. His heart was still beating irregular, still doing that scary skip every few minutes. He wanted to lie down, he wanted to sleep for a week. But these people deserved an answer. I'll tell you something, he said. My Sarah, my wife, she passed 3 years back. Cancer. Near the end, she couldn't get out of bed, couldn't feed herself. She was in pain every minute of every day. His voice caught. I stayed with her. Didn't matter how hard it got, how much it hurt to watch her suffer. I stayed because that's what love does. That's what being human means. He looked around at all of them. Tonight you were suffering, you were dying, and maybe you've done bad things in your lives, I don't know. And like I said, I don't much care, but you're still human. You're still somebody's son, somebody's daughter, somebody's brother. And I couldn't watch you die any more than I could have walked away from Sarah when she needed me. The barn was absolutely silent. Then Silas Kane did something Arthur didn't expect. The president of the Hells Angels, this hard man covered in scars and tattoos, this man who'd probably done things that would give Arthur nightmares, he bowed his head. Mr. Hale, Silas said, his voice thick with emotion. I've been in this club for 23 years. I've ridden with hundreds of brothers and sisters. I've seen loyalty, seen people take bullets for each other, seen family bonds that go deeper than blood. He looked up and his eyes were wet. But I have never seen anything like what you did tonight. You saved our lives, all of us, and you asked for nothing. Didn't need anything, Arthur said. You needed help, I helped. That's all. No, Silas said firmly. That's not all. You could have died out there, probably should have. Your heart stopped for God's sake, but you kept going, kept dragging us in one at a time until we were all safe. He stood up shaky but determined. Mr. Hale, the Hells Angels pay their debts, always. What you did tonight, we owe you a debt we can never fully repay, but we're going to try. Don't owe me anything, Arthur protested. I just did what was right. Maybe, Reaper said, standing up beside Silas, but nobody else would have done it. You gave us our lives back. Some of us, her voice cracked, most of us. That matters. The other bikers were standing now, one by one, forming a semicircle around Arthur. 18 people who'd been dead an hour ago looking at the old farmer who'd refused to let them go. We owe you, the gray-bearded biker said. Me. Name's Diesel, by the way, and I'm telling you straight, what you did tonight, that's the kind of thing we don't forget. Ever. Arthur felt overwhelmed. He'd expected gratitude, maybe. A thank you, a handshake. Then they'd be on their way when the storm cleared. This felt like something else, something bigger. Listen, he said, trying to find the right words. I appreciate what you're saying, but I'm just an old farmer. I don't need any big gestures or... Mr. Hale, Silas interrupted gently, let me tell you something about the Hells Angels. We take care of our own. We protect our family. And tonight you became family. Whether you like it or not, whether you want it or not, you're one of us now. And that means something. It means, the bald biker who introduced himself as Razor said with a fierce grin, that if you ever need anything, and I mean anything, you call us. You're in trouble. You need help. You need someone hurt. Silas shot him a look. I mean, you need someone to fix your roof or whatever you call. I'm serious, Silas said. You got a number we can reach you at. Arthur gave them his phone number, feeling a bit dazed. This wasn't how he thought tonight would go. He'd imagined pulling them from the snow, warming them up, sending them on their way. Not this. Not becoming part of some biker family. The young kid stepped forward. I'm Jax, he said, and I need to say something. I've been riding for 2 years. This is my first run with the club to Montana. I was so excited, so proud. His voice shook. Then the storm hit. The bikes went down. I couldn't feel my hands, couldn't feel anything. I thought I was dead. I thought we were all dead. Tears were running down his face now. Then I woke up here, warm, safe, because you wouldn't let us die. You're 80 years old and you have no idea who we are and you almost killed yourself saving us. He wiped his eyes roughly. My mom would love you, Mr. Hale. She'd say you're exactly the kind of man she raised me to be. Arthur felt his own throat getting tight. Your mom sounds like a good woman. She is, Jack said, and she taught me that honor matters. Debts matter. Mr. Hale, I swear to you on my life, if you ever need me, I'll be there. I don't care what it is. I don't care where I am. You call, I come. That's a promise. Same, Diesel said. Same, Razor echoed. Same, Reaper said, her voice fierce despite the grief in her eyes. One by one, all 18 of them said it. Same, 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 a chorus of promises from people Arthur had saved, people who were swearing some kind of oath he didn't fully understand. Silas pulled out his phone, which had somehow survived the crash, and took a picture of Arthur. This goes in our group chat, he explained. Every member of the Hells Angels in Montana, Wyoming, and Idaho. They all need to know your face. Need to know that if Arthur Hale needs anything, they drop everything and help, no questions asked. That's really not necessary. Arthur started, but Silas held up a hand. It's already done, Mr. Hale. The message is sent. 300 brothers and sisters just learned your name. Arthur didn't know what to say to that. Didn't know how to process the fact that 300 bikers now considered him what family a debt they owed. The storm was still raging outside, showing no signs of letting up. Arthur realized these people would be here all night, maybe longer. He looked around at his barn. Not nearly enough space, not nearly enough supplies for 19 people. I've got food up at the house, he said. Not much, but enough for tonight. And there's more blankets, more heat. You're all welcome to come in. Silas shook his head. We appreciate it, Mr. Hale, but we've already taken too much. We'll be fine here in the barn. Nonsense, Arthur said firmly. Half of you are still hypothermic. You need proper warmth, proper food. Besides, he looked at Hawk's still form in the corner. Your friend deserves better than being left in a coal barn. That did it. Silas's face softened. You'd let us bring him into your house? Of course, it's the decent thing to do. So they made their way up to the farmhouse, Arthur leading the way through snow that had drifted 3 feet high in places, the bikers helping each other, supporting those who were still weak. They carried Hawk's body with reverence, wrapped in one of Arthur's horse blankets. Inside Arthur's house was small, just a kitchen, a living room, 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom. It had been just him since Sarah died, and before that, just the 2 of them. The house had never held more than maybe 6 people at a time. Now there were 19 bikers filling every available space. Arthur made coffee, heated up cans of soup, found every blanket in the house and distributed them. The bikers were quiet, respectful, still processing everything that had happened. They laid Hawk on Arthur's couch, covered him with Sarah's favorite quilt, the one she'd made herself, the one Arthur hadn't been able to put away even after 3 years. Reaper sat beside her brother's body, holding his cold hand, crying silently. Arthur brought her coffee, sat down in his worn armchair nearby. He was a good man, Reaper said after a while. I know what people think about us, about bikers, about Hell's Angels. But Hawk, he was good. Helped kids in the neighborhood learn to fix bikes, volunteered at the Veterans Center, remembered everyone's birthday. Her voice broke. He didn't deserve to die in a storm at 43. No, Arthur agreed, he didn't. But you tried to save him. Even after you were already half dead yourself, you tried. That matters, Mr. Hale. That matters so much. In the kitchen, Silas was on his phone making arrangements. Arthur could hear him talking about tow trucks, about getting the bikes recovered once the storm passed, about funeral plans for Hawk. The young kid Jax found Sarah's photo on the mantle. The wedding photo, Arthur and Sarah both so young, smiling like they owned the world. This your wife, Jax asked. Was Sarah. She passed 3 years back. I'm sorry. Jack studied the photo. You two look happy. We were. 55 years together. Every day was a gift. 55 years, Jax repeated, awed. My parents couldn't make it 5 years without killing each other. I can't even imagine loving someone that long. You will, Arthur said. When you find the right person, time doesn't matter. Could be 5 years or 50, it's never enough. The storm raged on outside. Inside Arthur's small farmhouse had become a refuge for 18 living bikers and 1 dead one. They ate soup and drank coffee and slowly warmed up, slowly came back to life. Around midnight, Diesel spoke up from his spot by the fireplace. "Mr. Hale, can I ask you something?" "Sure." "The bank. I saw the notice on your door when we came in. They foreclosing on this place." Arthur felt his stomach sink. He'd almost forgotten about that in the chaos of the night. The notice had arrived 3 days ago. 90 days to pay $75,000 or lose the farm. Money he didn't have. Money he'd never have. "Yeah," he said quietly. "They are." The room went silent. All 18 bikers were looking at him now. "How much?" Silas asked. "That's not your concern." "How much, Mr. Hale?" Arthur sighed. 75,000. Got 90 days to come up with it or they take the farm. Which they will because I don't have it, can't get it, but that's life. Can't hold on to everything forever. He tried to sound philosophical about it, tried to sound like it didn't matter. But it did matter. This farm was everything. 55 years of memories with Sarah. The only home he'd ever known. Losing it would kill him slower than the storm would have, but just as sure. Silas and Diesel exchanged a look. Then Silas pulled out his phone again. "What are you doing?" Arthur asked. "Making a call," Silas said. "Don't worry about it." But Arthur did worry, because he had a feeling his quiet life had just gotten a lot more complicated. Arthur watched Silas step out onto the porch, phone pressed to his ear, his voice too low to hear through the closed door. Something about the way the biker present held himself tense, determined, made Arthur uneasy. "He's calling in favors," Diesel said from his spot by the fire. The old biker was watching Arthur with knowing eyes. "You just saved 18 lives. You think we're going to let some bank take your home?" "It's not your problem," Arthur said firmly. "I appreciate the thought, but nothing," Reaper cut in. She'd left her brother's side for the first time in an hour, her eyes red, but her voice steel. "Mr. Hale, you don't get it? In our world, there's one rule that matters more than anything else. You pay your debts. Always. No exceptions." Jax nodded eagerly. "She's right. You saved our lives. That's not something you just say thank you for and walk away." "I don't want your money," Arthur said, feeling his back stiffen. Pride was a funny thing. It could keep you warm when you had nothing else, and it could freeze you to death just as quick. "I helped because as it was right, not because I expected payment." "We know that," Diesel said gently. "That's exactly why we're going to help you. Because you didn't ask. Because you gave everything you had and expected nothing back." The front door opened. Silas came back in snowflakes, dusting his leather jacket, his face unreadable. Behind him, the storm was still screaming into the night. "It's done," Silas said. "What's done?" Arthur asked, though part of him already knew he wouldn't like the answer. "Made some calls. Talked to our chapters in Billings, Bozeman, Missoula. Talked to our brothers in Idaho and Wyoming." Silas met Arthur's eyes. "By morning, we'll have your 75,000. Arthur stood up so fast his chair scraped across the floor. "Absolutely not. I won't take your money." "It's not charity," Silas said calmly. "It's a debt. You gave us our lives. We're giving you your home. That's fair trade in my book." "Fair trade?" Arthur's voice rose despite himself. "You don't owe me a house. You don't owe me anything. I did what any decent person would do." "But they didn't," Razor interrupted from the corner. "That's the point, old man. Anyone else would have let us die. You're the only one who didn't. That makes you different. That makes you family." "I'm not family. I'm just—" "You're family now," Reaper said, and there was something fierce in her voice that made Arthur stop. "Whether you like it or not. My brother is dead, Mr. Hale. Hawk is gone. But 17 of us are alive because you wouldn't quit. You think I'm going to let you lose your home after that? You think any of us will?" Arthur sat back down, suddenly exhausted. His heart was doing that irregular thing again, skipping beats, making his chest tight. "I can't accept this." "You can, and you will," Silas said. It wasn't a threat, just a statement of fact, the way you'd say the sky is blue or water is wet. "The money will be here in 3 days. We'll pay off your mortgage. You keep your farm. That's how this goes. And if I refuse," Silas smiled and it was surprisingly warm, "then we'll pay it anyway and you can be mad about it. But the farm stays yours either way." Arthur wanted to argue more, wanted to tell them they were being ridiculous, that he couldn't accept such a massive gift from strangers. But looking around at their faces, at Jax's eager determination, at Reaper's grief-stricken gratitude, at Diesel's knowing smile, he realized something. These people needed to do this, needed to pay back the debt in a way that mattered. Refusing them wasn't just pride. It was taking away their chance to be the good guys for once. I don't know what to say, Arthur admitted quietly. Say you'll keep the farm, Jack said. Say you'll stay here where you belong. I'll stay, Arthur said, his voice cracking. God help me, I'll stay. The tension in the room broke like a fever. Bikers who'd been holding their breath let it out. Someone laughed, a sound of pure relief. Diesel raised his coffee mug in a toast. To Arthur Hale, the old biker said, the toughest son of a bitch in Montana. To Arthur Hale, they echoed, raising their own mugs, their voices filling the small farmhouse. Arthur had to look away. His eyes were burning, and he wasn't about to cry in front of 18 bikers, but it was a close thing. The storm finally started to ease around 2 in the morning. The wind died down from a scream to a moan, and through the window, Arthur could see the snow falling lighter, gentler. They'd be able to dig out by morning. Most of the bikers had fallen asleep where they sat on the floor in chairs leaning against walls. Exhaustion and hypothermia had caught up with them all at once. Only Silas Diesel and Reaper were still awake, keeping vigil with Arthur. Tell me about your wife, Reaper said suddenly. She was still sitting beside Hawk's body, but she was looking at Arthur now at Sarah's photo on the mantel. You said you were married 55 years. That's a whole lifetime. Arthur settled deeper into his chair. Talking about Sarah still hurt, but it was a good hurt, like pressing on a bruise to make sure you were still alive. Met her at a church dance in 1968, he said. I was 22, just back from Vietnam. Didn't know what to do with myself. Didn't know how to be normal again after what I'd seen. He smiled at the memory. Sarah was 19th prettiest girl I'd ever laid eyes on. She asked me to dance, and I stepped on her feet 4 times. She married me anyway. What was she like? Jax asked. The kid had woken up, was listening from his spot on the floor. Stubborn, Arthur said immediately. Lord, that woman was stubborn. Once she made up her mind about something, you couldn't change it with dynamite. But she was kind, too. The kindest person I ever knew. She'd see someone hurting, and she'd fix it. Didn't matter if it was a stray dog or the neighbor's kid or a complete stranger. She'd fix it. Sounds like someone else I know, Diesel said meaningfully. Arthur ignored that. We tried for kids, but it didn't happen. Doctor said it was me, something from Vietnam, the chemicals they used over there. Sarah never blamed me, never made me feel less because of it. She'd say, Arthur, we got each other. That's more than most people ever get. She was right, Reaper said softly. She was. We built this farm from nothing. Worked side by side for 5 decades. Had good years and bad years, times when the crops failed, and we ate beans for months, times when we had more than we needed. Through all of it, she was there. Arthur's voice went rough. Then 3 years ago, she started getting tired. Just tired all the time. Turned out to be pancreatic cancer. Stage 4 by the time they found it. The room had gone completely quiet. Even the bikers who'd been pretending to sleep were listening now. She had 6 months, Arthur continued. 6 months from diagnosis to the end. And they were the hardest 6 months of my life. Watching her fade, watching the cancer eat her alive piece by piece. But you know what she said to me right near the end? What? Jax whispered. She said, Arthur Hale, you better not crawl in this grave with me. You better keep living. Keep being kind. Keep being the man I fell in love with. Promise me. Arthur had to stop, had to breathe through the tightness in his chest. I promised her. And tonight, pulling you all from that snow, that was me, keeping my promise. That was me, being the man she believed I was. Reaper was crying openly now. Silas had his head bowed. Diesel was wiping his eyes with the back of his hand. She'd be proud of you, Reaper said, for what you did tonight. She'd be so proud. Ito. I hope so, Arthur said. I surely hope so. They sat in silence for a while, the only sound the crackling of the fire and the diminishing wind outside. Arthur felt something shift in the room, some invisible wall coming down. These weren't strangers anymore, weren't just bikers he'd saved. They were people, people with their own stories, their own pain. Can I tell you about Hawk? Reaper asked suddenly. Please, Arthur said. He was 5 years older than me, practically raised me after our dad left. Mom worked 3 jobs just to keep us fed, so Hawk was the one who made sure I did my homework, made sure I ate dinner, made sure the kids at school didn't mess with me. She smiled through her tears. He joined the Hells Angels when he was 20. I was 15. Scared me to death at first, but he said the club was family. Said they'd protect me too just because I was his sister. And did they? Arthur asked. Every single one of them, Reaper said, gesturing around the room. When I turned 18 and wanted to prospect, wanted to join up half the chapter, tried to talk me out of it. Said it was too dangerous for a woman. But Hawk backed me up. Said I was tougher than most of the men, and he was right. I made it through. Earned my patch. And these guys, her voice broke. These guys became my brothers and sisters, for real. Not just Hawk, all of them. Razor spoke up from the corner. Hawk was the best of us. Never started fights, but never backed down from one either. Would give you his last dollar if you needed it. Would ride through hell for any member of this club. He did ride through hell, Diesel added quietly. Tonight. That storm was hell, and he rode right into it with the rest of us. He just didn't make it out. But he would have wanted us to, Reaper said. He would have wanted us to survive. And Mr. Hale, he would have wanted us to thank you properly. To make sure you knew what your sacrifice meant. It wasn't a sacrifice, Arthur protested. It was everything, Silas said, his voice hard with emotion. Mr. Hale, I've been riding for 23 years. I've seen men die. I've seen brothers go down in crashes in fights from overdoses and cancer and just plain bad luck. And every single time it tears a piece out of me. Tonight we lost Hawk. That piece is gone. But we didn't lose 18 others. We didn't lose Reaper or Jax or Diesel or any of these people I'd die for. That's because of you. Silas is right, a new voice said. One of the bikers Arthur hadn't talked to much, a woman with silver hair and a scarred cheek. I'm Snake. Been riding for 16 years. Got 2 kids at home in Billings, 10 and 12. They're going to have a mom come home because you wouldn't quit. You know what that's worth. You know what you gave them. Arthur didn't trust himself to speak. And I got a fiancée, Jax added. We're supposed to get married in June. She's going to have a husband because you dragged my frozen ass out of the snow. That's not nothing, Mr. Hale. That's everything. One by one, they went around the room. Each biker told Arthur what he'd saved tonight, who was waiting for them at home, what they'd have missed if they died in his driveway. Diesel had 3 grandkids he was teaching to ride. Razor had a mom in a nursing home who he visited every Sunday. A biker named Ghost was 2 weeks away from getting his 5-year sobriety chip. A woman called Tiny had just started nursing school. Another man, Torch, was coaching Little League Baseball. They weren't just bikers. They were fathers and mothers, sons and daughters, people with lives and futures, and people who loved them. And Arthur had saved all of it. By the time they finished, the sun was starting to come up. Gray light filtered through the windows, showing a world buried in white. The storm had finally passed. We should get the bikes, Silas said, standing and stretching. His movements were still stiff, still showing the effects of last night, but he was alive. They were all alive. I'll help, Arthur said. No, Silas said firmly. You're going to rest. You almost died last night, Mr. Hale, multiple times. You're going to sit in this chair and drink coffee and let us handle this. But no buts, Reaper said. You saved us. Now let us take care of you for a change. Arthur wanted to argue, but his body was screaming at him to stay put. His chest hurt. His legs hurt. Everything hurt. He was 80 years old and he'd pulled 19 people through a blizzard. Maybe sitting down wasn't the worst idea. The bikers bundled up and headed out into the snow. Through the window, Arthur watched them dig out their motorcycles, work together to right the fallen bikes, check for damage. They moved like a well-oiled machine, everyone knowing their role, working in sync. Jack stayed behind. Someone should keep you company, the kid said. Make sure you don't keel over while we're gone. I'm not going to keel over. That's what you said before your heart stopped last night, Jax pointed out. So forgive me if I don't take your word for it. Arthur had to smile at that. Fair enough. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Arthur drank coffee. Jax kept glancing at Hawk's covered body on the couch, his face troubled. First time you've seen someone die? Arthur asked gently. Yeah, Jax admitted. I mean, my grandpa died when I was little, but that was different. That was expected. He trailed off. Hawk was laughing yesterday, making jokes about the weather, and now he's just gone. Death's like that sometimes, Arthur said. It doesn't make appointments, doesn't give you time to prepare. It just comes. How do you deal with it? After your wife, after Sarah, how did you keep going? Arthur thought about that. Thought about the 3 years since Sarah died, the long, empty nights, the mornings when he couldn't remember why he should get out of bed. Honestly, some days I didn't want to keep going. Some days it felt easier to just stop. But I made her a promise. And I'm a man who keeps his promises. He looked at Jax. You find something to hold on to. Something bigger than your grief. For me, it was that promise. For you, maybe it's your fiancé. Maybe it's the club. Maybe it's just waking up every morning and choosing to be here one more day. That sounds hard. It is hard. But nothing worth doing is easy. Outside, someone shouted. Arthur and Jax both jumped up. Well, Jax jumped up. Arthur levered himself out of his chair with a groan and looked out the window. The bikers had gotten all 19 motorcycles upright and were checking them over. But they weren't alone anymore. 3 pickup trucks were coming up Arthur's long driveway, pushing through the snow, their headlights cutting through the morning gray. Who's that? Jax asked, his hand automatically going to his belt where his knife wasn't anymore. Don't know, Arthur said, but something in his gut twisted. The trucks looked official, the kind of official that came with bad news. Silas was already walking toward the trucks, his posture tense. The other bikers formed up behind him, not threatening exactly, but not welcoming either. A wall of leather and loyalty between Arthur's farm and whoever was coming. The lead truck stopped. A man got out. 50-ish, wearing an expensive coat over an expensive suit, the kind of clothes that said money and power in equal measure. He looked at the bikers, at the motorcycles at Arthur's farmhouse. Then he smiled, and it was the kind of smile that made Arthur's blood run cold. The kind of smile that said, I'm about to ruin your day and there's nothing you can do about it. Arthur Hale, the man called out. Arthur opened the front door and stepped onto the porch. The cold hit him like a slap, but he didn't retreat. This was his land, his home. He'd be damned if he'd hide inside. I'm Arthur Hale. Thomas Beckman, the man said, walking closer. I represent Horizon Development Corporation. I believe you received our foreclosure notice. I did, Arthur said carefully. Got 90 days to pay. Actually, Beckman said, his smile widening, that's what I'm here about. There's been a change in timeline. Arthur's heart did that skip thing again. What kind of change? We're accelerating the foreclosure. You now have 72 hours to vacate the property. The words hung in the cold morning air like knives. You can't do that, Arthur said, but he heard the uncertainty in his own voice. The notice said 90 days. The notice was contingent on certain conditions you violated. Beckman pulled out a folder, made a show of flipping through papers. Unauthorized occupancy of the property by Mariano. He looked at the bikers. Let's call them questionable individuals. Use of the property for potentially illegal activity. Failure to maintain adequate insurance. I could go on. That's all bullshit, Silas said, stepping forward. His voice was dangerously quiet. This man saved our lives last night. We're here as his guests. I don't care if you're here as the Pope's personal escort, Beckman said. The fact is, Mr. Hale violated the terms of his mortgage agreement. Horizon Development is within its legal rights to accelerate foreclosure. 72 hours, Mr. Hale. Then this property belongs to us. Why? Arthur asked. His voice sounded distant to his own ears. Why do you want this farm so bad it's not worth anything? Just an old man's land. Beckman's smile turned predatory. Not to you, maybe, but to Horizon Development, this land is worth quite a bit. We're building a resort complex, luxury condos, shopping center, golf course. This farm sits right in the middle of our planned development. We've been buying up parcels for 2 years. You're the last holdout. So you're stealing my home to build condos, Arthur said flatly. We're not stealing anything. We're exercising our legal rights as mortgage holders. You owe us money, Mr. Hale. You can't pay. We take the property. That's how business works. That's how theft works, Reaper said, her voice sharp as broken glass. Beckman turned his cold smile on her. I'd be very careful about throwing around accusations, young lady, especially given your associations. He looked pointedly at her Hell's Angels patch. I'm sure the local police would be very interested to know about the criminal elements currently occupying this property. We haven't done anything wrong, Jax said hotly. Yet, Beckman said, but the day's young. Silas put a hand on Jax's shoulder, holding the kid back. But Arthur could see the fury in the biker president's eyes, could see him calculating. Options, angles, ways to make this smug bastard hurt. Don't, Arthur said quietly. He's trying to provoke you. Wants you to do something stupid so he can call the cops, make this worse. Listen to the old man, Beckman said. He's smarter than he looks. He turned back to Arthur. 72 hours, Mr. Hale. I'll be back Thursday morning with a moving crew and sheriffs. I'd suggest you start packing. He walked back to his truck, got in, and drove away. The other two trucks followed. Within minutes, they were gone, leaving nothing but tire tracks in the snow and a sick feeling in Arthur's stomach. That son of a bitch, Razor said. He can't do this, Snake added. There's got to be laws. There are laws, Diesel said grimly, and guys like Beckman know every loophole in them. If he says he can accelerate the foreclosure, he probably can. Arthur sat down heavily on the porch steps. He felt old. Older than 80, older than in the hills. All the fight that had gotten him through last night, all that strength and stubbornness, it was just gone, drained away like water through a sieve. We'll fight this, Silas said. He was standing in front of Arthur now, his face set. We'll get lawyers. We'll, in 72 hours, Arthur shook his head. Even if we had the money, which we don't, not yet, there's no way to fight this in 3 days. He knows that. That's why he's doing it now. Then we don't let him, Reaper said fiercely. We stand between him and this farm. We don't let him take it. That's exactly what he wants, Arthur said. Wants you to do something illegal so he can call it a criminal occupation, get the sheriffs involved with warrants and guns. Then it's not just about the farm anymore. It's about all of you getting arrested. So we just give up, Jax demanded. After last night, after everything we just let him win. Arthur didn't have an answer for that. He'd spent everything he had saving these people, and now the reward was losing his home anyway. The irony wasn't lost on him. Neither was the bitterness. Silas pulled out his phone, started making calls. Arthur could hear him talking to lawyers, to other club members, to anyone who might have an angle. But the defeat was already settling into his voice. 72 hours wasn't enough time. The other bikers were talking among themselves, throwing out ideas. Some were stupid, like barricading the property and forcing a standoff. Some were illegal, like making Beckman disappear. None were practical. Arthur just sat on his porch steps and watched the sun come up over his farm, his land, the place where he and Sarah had built a life where they'd loved each other for 55 years, where she died in his arms 3 springs ago. 72 hours. Then it would all be gone. Mr. Hale, Jax's voice was quiet. The kid sat down beside him on the steps. What can we do? Nothing, Arthur said. There's nothing to do. That's not true. There's always something. Not this time, son. Sometimes you just lose. That's life. They sat in silence. Inside the house, Arthur could hear the bikers still arguing, still trying to find a solution that didn't exist. Outside, the morning sun was turning the snow-covered fields into something beautiful, something that would soon belong to someone else. Arthur thought about Sarah, about her cancer, about watching her die. He'd fought so hard to save her, tried everything, and she died anyway. Now he'd fought so hard to save these bikers, succeeded, and he was losing his home anyway. Maybe that was the lesson. Maybe sometimes fighting wasn't enough. Maybe sometimes the universe just decided you'd had your time and it was someone else's turn. I don't accept that, Jack said suddenly. What? I don't accept that we lose. Not after last night. Not after what you did for us. The kid's jaw was set stubborn, reminded Arthur of Sarah. You didn't quit on us when we were dying. We're not quitting on you. It's not about quitting. It's about reality. Reality is what we make it, Jack said. Silas taught me that. The Hells Angels exist because a bunch of guys decided reality didn't have to be what other people said it was. We make our own rules, our own reality. Before Arthur could respond, Silas came back outside. His face was different now, not defeated anymore, determined. We need to move, Hawk, Silas said. Get him somewhere proper, and we need to get the bikes out of here before Beckman comes back with sheriffs. Where will you go? Arthur asked. Clubhouse in Billings. It's about 2 hours from here. Silas looked at Arthur. And you're coming with us. What? No, I'm not leaving my home. For 3 days you are. If Beckman comes back and you're here alone, there's nothing stopping him from doing whatever he wants. But if you're with us, if you're under our protection, that changes things. Changes them how? Silas smiled, and this time it was a wolf's smile. Let me worry about that. Right now, I need you to trust me. Pack a bag. 3 days of clothes. Come to Billings with us. I don't... Mr. Hale, Reaper interrupted. Please, let us try. We owe you everything. Let us try to pay it back. Arthur looked at these people, these bikers who'd been strangers 12 hours ago, these people he'd saved, these people who were now trying to save him. All right, he said finally, 3 days. Then I'm coming home, even if it's just to watch them tear it down. Fair enough, Silas said. Now let's move. The clubhouse in Billings was nothing like Arthur expected. He'd imagined something dark and dangerous, maybe with bullet holes in the walls and drugs on the tables. Instead, it was just a large warehouse that had been converted into something halfway between a garage and a community center. Motorcycles lined one wall. A full kitchen took up another corner. Pool tables, a bar, couches that had seen better days. It looked lived in. Looked like home. Not what you pictured, right? Diesel asked, watching Arthur's face. No, Arthur admitted. It's not. Most people think we're animals, Diesel said. Living in filth, breaking laws for fun. Some clubs are like that. We're not. We're family. This is where family meets. Arthur set his small duffel bag down. He'd packed light 3 changes of clothes, his medications, a photo of Sarah. Everything that mattered fit in one bag. Everything else was back at the farm, waiting to be bulldozed. Silas is in the back office, Reaper said. Making calls. He's been on the phone since we left your place. That had been 2 hours ago. 2 hours of riding through snow-covered highways, Arthur sitting in Diesel's truck, because he couldn't ride a motorcycle if his life depended on it, watching the bikers escort Hawk's body like an honor guard. They'd stopped at a funeral home in Great Falls, made arrangements, then continued to Billings. Now it was almost noon and Arthur was exhausted. His body was reminding him that he was 80 years old and had almost died last night. His chest ached. His legs felt like rubber, but he couldn't rest, not with 72 hours ticking away. Mr. Hale, you need to eat, Snake said. She was already in the kitchen, pulling out sandwich fixings. When's the last time you had real food? Arthur couldn't remember. Yesterday, sometime before the storm. That's what I thought, Snake said. Sit down. I'm making you lunch and you're eating every bite. Yes, ma'am, Arthur said, too tired to argue. Jack sat down across from him at the long wooden table. The kid's eyes were red from crying over Hawk, but he was holding it together. Barely. My fiancée is coming, Jack said. Melissa, she wants to meet you. She doesn't need to. She does. I called her this morning, told her everything. She cried for an hour. Then she said she's driving down from Bozeman to shake your hand. Jack smiled weakly. She's stubborn like that. Sounds like a good woman. She is. We met 2 years ago at a diner. She was my waitress. I was so nervous I knocked over my water glass 3 times. She thought it was cute. He paused. I almost didn't make it back to her last night. If you hadn't... But I did, Arthur said firmly. So you did make it back. You're going to marry her in June and you're going to be happy. That's what matters. The office door opened. Silas came out and something about his face made everyone stop talking. He looked different, harder, like he'd made a decision that couldn't be unmade. Everyone here, Silas called out. Bikers started gathering from all corners of the clubhouse. More than had been at the farm, Arthur counted at least 30 people, maybe more. Word had spread fast. We got a problem, Silas said with a preamble. Arthur's farm is being stolen. Developer named Thomas Beckman is forcing an accelerated foreclosure. 72 hours. I've been making calls all morning. Talked to 5 different lawyers. They all say the same thing: we can't stop it legally. Not in 3 days. Murmurs of anger rippled through the crowd. So we stop it illegally? Razor said. No, Silas said sharply. That's exactly what Beckman wants. He's trying to provoke us into doing something stupid so he can call the cops, get us arrested, get Arthur's farm condemned as a criminal property. Then he takes it even faster. Then what do we do? Reaper asked. Silas looked at Arthur. Something in that look made Arthur's stomach drop. We do what we do best, Silas said. We ride. What does that mean? Arthur asked. It means, Silas said, his voice taking on an edge Arthur hadn't heard before, that Thomas Beckman is about to learn what happens when you mess with Hell's Angels family. It means every chapter within 500 miles is coming here. It means Thursday morning when Beckman shows up at your farm, he's not going to find an empty house. He's going to find an army. The clubhouse erupted. Bikers were shouting, pumping fists, already pulling out phones to spread the word. Arthur felt like he'd stepped into something much bigger than his small-arm problem. "Wait," Arthur said, raising his voice. "Wait, what are you planning?" Silas walked over to him. "We're planning to show Beckman that you're not alone, that you're protected, that taking your farm means going through us first." "But you said we can't do anything illegal." "We won't," Silas said. "We're not going to touch him. We're not going to threaten him. We're just going to be there. 500 motorcycles surrounding your property. A wall of leather between him and your home. All completely legal. Just citizens exercising their right to peaceful assembly." 500, Arthur repeated faintly. "Maybe more. Word's spreading fast. Hell's Angels don't forget debts. And what you did saving 18 of our people, that's a debt every chapter feels. They're coming, Mr. Hale, from Montana, Idaho, Wyoming. Even some from Washington and the Dakotas. They're all coming." Arthur sat down heavily. 500 bikers. At his farm, for him. "This is insane," he said. "No," Diesel said, sitting beside him. "This is family." Snake brought over a sandwich. Arthur looked at it without seeing it. His mind was spinning. 500 people coming to help him, to protect his home. People who didn't know him, who'd never met him, coming because he'd saved 18 strangers in a blizzard. "I don't deserve this," Arthur said quietly. "Yes, you do," Jack said fiercely. "You deserve this and more. You gave us our lives. We're giving you yours back." The office phone rang. Silas answered it, listened, then smiled a real smile this time, not the hard one from before. "That was the Boise chapter," he said. "They're sending 20 riders. Should be here by tomorrow night." More calls came in over the next hour. Missoula chapter 30 riders, Great Falls 15, Spokane 25. Each call brought more reinforcements, more people willing to drop everything and ride to Billings to help a stranger. Arthur's sandwich sat untouched in front of him. He couldn't eat, couldn't process this. It was too big, too overwhelming. "Mr. Hale," a woman's voice said. Arthur looked up. A young woman stood there, maybe 25, with long brown hair and worried eyes. She was holding Jax's hand. "I'm Melissa," she said, "Jax's fiancée." She didn't wait for Arthur to respond. She just wrapped him in a hug, squeezing tight enough that Arthur couldn't breathe for a second. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for giving him back to me." When she pulled back, she was crying. Jax was crying. Arthur felt his own eyes burning. "He's a good man," Arthur managed. "Take care of him." "I will. And Mr. Hale, when you two get married in June, you're invited. Front row, I mean it." "I'd be honored," Arthur said, because what else could he say? More people started arriving. Bikers Arthur had never met coming to shake his hand, to say thank you, to pledge their support. Each one had heard the story how an 80-year-old farmer had saved 18 Hell's Angels in a blizzard, nearly dying in the process. The story was growing with each telling, becoming legend. By evening, the clubhouse was packed. Easily 100 people, maybe more. They kept coming. The parking lot filled with motorcycles. The kitchen ran out of food and someone made a beer run. It felt like a party, but underneath was something more serious. Something purposeful. Silas called for quiet around 8 o'clock. "Listen up," he said. "We've got 2 days before Beckman shows up at Arthur's farm. 2 days to plan this right. I want scouts watching the property 24/7. I want routes mapped out for when the chapters start arriving Thursday morning. I want everyone understanding the rules, no violence, no threats, nothing that gives Beckman ammunition. We do this clean." "What if he brings the sheriffs?" someone called out. "Then we're polite and cooperative," Silas said. "We show them we're not breaking any laws. We're just visiting a friend. That's not illegal." "What if they try to arrest us anyway?" "Then we have bail money ready and lawyers on speed dial. But it won't come to that. Beckman's trying to bully an old man. He's not expecting resistance. When he sees what he's up against, he'll back down." "And if he doesn't?" Reaper asked. Silas's face went hard. "Then we make him understand that some things aren't for sale. Some people aren't alone, and some debts get paid no matter what." The crowd roared approval. Arthur felt swept up in it, in this wave of loyalty and determination that had nothing to do with him and everything to do with him all at once. "I need to call my son," someone said. Arthur turned. It was one of the bikers from last night. a quiet man named Crow who hadn't said much. He's in the army, stationed in Germany. I need to tell him I almost died and some old farmer saved my life. Call him, Silas said. Everyone, if you got people who need to know what happened, tell them. Tell them about Arthur. Tell them what he did. I want the whole damn country to know this story. Arthur wanted to protest, wanted to say he didn't need the attention, but the words died in his throat. Because this wasn't about what he wanted anymore. This was about what these people needed to give back, needed to honor, needed to make right. His phone rang. Arthur pulled it out, saw a number he didn't recognize. Hello, Mr. Hale, this is Rebecca Martinez from Channel 7 News in Great Falls. I'm calling about a story I heard something about you saving a group of bikers in last night's storm. Arthur's stomach dropped. How did you? Social media, sir. The story's everywhere. Hell's Angels chapters across 5 states are posting about it. I'd like to interview you. Could you tell me? Arthur hung up. His hands were shaking. That was a reporter, he said. Good, Silas said. The more people who know, the better. Beckman thinks he can steal your farm in the dark. Let's drag this into the light. Let's make it so the whole state is watching what he does Thursday morning. The phone rang again. Different number. Arthur didn't answer. It rang 4 more times before he finally turned it off. This is getting out of control, Arthur said. No, Diesel said. This is getting exactly where it needs to be. You think Beckman wants news cameras at your farm Thursday. You think he wants to be the villain in this story? He doesn't care about stories, he cares about money. He cares about his reputation, Diesel corrected. Rich guys like Beckman, they live on their reputation. If he becomes the man who stole an old war veteran's farm right after that veteran saved 18 lives, that's bad for business. I'm not a war veteran, Arthur protested. Vietnam, right? Jack said you mentioned it last night. That was 50 years ago. I wasn't a hero. I was just a kid who got drafted. Doesn't matter, Diesel said. To the story, you're a veteran and a hero. And sometimes the story is what matters. Arthur didn't like it. Didn't like being turned into some symbol, some legend. He was just a man who'd done what was right. But looking around at these people, at their fierce loyalty, their determination to help him, he realized he'd lost control of this the moment he'd stepped into the blizzard last night. A young biker approached, couldn't have been more than 20. Mr. Hale, I'm Phoenix. I wasn't there last night, but my brother was. Torch, you saved him. I remember Torch, Arthur said. The little league coach. He called me this morning. Told me everything. Told me he owes you his life. Phoenix's voice cracked. Torch raised me after our parents died. He's all I got, and you gave him back to me. So I'm riding Thursday. I'm standing with you. You don't have to. Yeah, I do. We all do. That's what it means to be Hell's Angels. We pay our debts. More stories came throughout the night. Ghost sponsor from AA, called Heard About the Rescue, wanted to know where to send flowers. Snake's kids made Arthur a thank you card, crude crayon drawings of motorcycles and snowflakes. Tiny's mom called from Seattle crying so hard she could barely speak, thanking Arthur for saving her daughter. Each story hit Arthur like a hammer. These weren't just bikers. They were people with families, with lives, with people who loved them. And he'd saved all of it without even knowing. Around midnight, Silas pulled Arthur aside. There's something you need to know, Silas said quietly, about Beckman. What about him? I made some calls, did some digging. Beckman's connected. Not just rich connected. He's got politicians in his pocket, judges on his payroll. This development project of his is worth about $200 million. Your farm is the last piece he needs. Arthur's chest tightened. So we can't win. I didn't say that. I said he's connected. But here's the thing, so are we. Maybe not in the same way, but we've got connections too. People who owe us favors. People who don't like seeing bullies win. Silas paused. I got a call an hour ago from a state senator. Not someone we know well, but someone who knows our reputation. He heard the story. He's interested. Interested how? Interested in making sure this gets handled properly. Interested in making sure Beckman doesn't steamroll an 80-year-old veteran who just saved 18 lives. Politicians love good stories, Arthur. And you're a damn good story. I don't want to be a story, Arthur said tiredly. I just want my home. Then let us get it for you. Let us use every tool we have, the bikes, the media attention, the political pressure. Let us fight this fight. Arthur looked at Silas. At this hard man with scars and tattoos who'd spent the last 12 hours working the phones, calling in favors, organizing an army, all for a stranger who'd saved his people. Why, Arthur asked. Why does this matter so much to you? Silas was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough with emotion. When I was 23, I was nobody. Drug addict, petty criminal, going nowhere fast. Then I got jumped outside a bar by 5 guys who wanted to teach me a lesson about selling on their turf. I was bleeding out in an alley, and everyone just walked past. Dozens of people. They all saw me. They all kept walking. He paused, swallowed hard. Then this old biker stopped. Name was Red. He didn't know me, didn't owe me anything. But he called an ambulance, stayed with me until it came paid for my first month of rehab out of his own pocket. Saved my life. And when I asked him why, you know what he said? Arthur shook his head. He said, because someone saved me once, and I'm paying it forward. Silas's eyes were wet. Red died 5 years ago, cancer. But what he taught me about helping people, even when it's hard, about paying debts, about being the kind of man who doesn't walk past someone who's dying that's still with me. You're Red, Arthur. You're the guy who doesn't walk past, and I'm paying forward what he gave me. Arthur had to look away. His own eyes were burning. He'd be proud of you, Arthur said. I hope so, and I hope I'm making him proud now. Fighting for you. The clubhouse had quieted down. Bikers were sprawled across couches, sleeping in chairs, some on the floor. It looked like a slumber party for dangerous people, but peaceful, safe. Reaper was still awake, sitting beside Hawk's photograph that someone had set up on the bar. She hadn't left her brother's side all day, even though his body was at the funeral home. Arthur walked over to her. You should sleep, he said gently. Can't, Reaper said. Every time I close my eyes, I see him in the snow, see him dying. Wonder if he knew at the end, if he was scared. He wasn't alone, Arthur said. He was with family, that matters. Does it? He still died. We all die, Reaper. That's not the tragedy. The tragedy is dying alone, dying without meaning. Your brother died riding with his family, died doing what he loved. And because of his death, because you all crashed on my farm, I saved 17 other people. His death wasn't meaningless. Reaper looked at him with red-rimmed eyes. You really believe that? I do. Sarah used to say that everything happens for a reason. I didn't always believe her, but sometimes I think she was right. Hawk died, but 18 others lived. And now those 18 are saving me. It's all connected. All matters. He would have liked you, Reaper said softly. Hawk would have really liked you. I wish I'd known him. Me too. They sat in silence for a while. Outside, Arthur could hear more motorcycles arriving. The army was gathering. His phone buzzed. He'd turned it back on to call the farm's nearest neighbor, Mrs. Henderson, to check on the property. Now he had 47 missed calls and twice as many text messages. One text was from a number he didn't recognize. Mr. Hale, this is Thomas Beckman. We need to talk. Call me. Arthur showed it to Silas. Don't, Silas said immediately. He's trying to get to you directly, trying to scare you or trick you. Don't engage. What if he's calling it off? What if all this pressure is working? Then he'll do it officially through lawyers. A text message isn't official. It's a fishing expedition. Another text came in, this one from a different number. Channel 7 News is running your story tomorrow morning. You're going to be famous. Arthur felt sick. He didn't want to be famous. He just wanted his quiet farm and his memories of Sarah and peace. I can't do this, Arthur said suddenly. This is too much. I'm 80 years old. I don't need an army. I don't need news cameras. I just need... You're home, Silas finished. I know, and that's exactly what we're getting you. But Arthur, this stopped being just about your farm the moment we told the story. It became about something bigger, about standing up to bullies, about protecting our own. You can't put that back in the box. I didn't ask for any of this. No, you didn't. You just saved 18 lives and asked for nothing in return. But we're giving you something anyway, whether you want it or not. Arthur wanted to argue, wanted to tell him to stop, to let him handle this quietly. But looking around at these people, at their fierce loyalty, their absolute determination, he knew it was pointless. This train had left the station. The door opened. A woman walked in late 50s wearing a Hells Angels jacket covered in patches. She had gray hair and kind eyes and moved like someone who'd been riding for decades. Silas, she said. Where is he, Rose? Silas said, standing. You came. Of course I came. You think I'd miss this? She walked straight to Arthur. You must be Arthur Hale. Yes, ma'am. I'm Rose. I run the Spokane chapter, 23 years in the club. And I want you to know something, what you did last night, that's going to be talked about for the next 50 years. You're a legend now. I don't want to be a legend. Too bad, Rose said, but she was smiling. You saved my nephew, Jax. That kid means the world to me. I've been raising him since he was 15, since his parents died. And you gave him back to me. You gave him a future with Melissa. So I'm here to say thank you and to tell you that every single member of my chapter is writing Thursday. All 25 of us. That's not necessary. It's absolutely necessary. And Arthur, Rose's voice went hard, Thomas Beckman picked the wrong fight. He's about to learn what happens when you threaten Hell's Angels family. More chapters kept arriving through the night and into Wednesday morning. The parking lot couldn't hold all the motorcycles. They spilled into the street lined up for blocks. By Wednesday afternoon, there were over 200 bikers in Billings. By Wednesday evening, 300. Each one came to meet Arthur. Each one had a story, someone they knew who'd been saved, someone they loved who'd been there. Each one pledged to ride Thursday morning. Arthur tried to keep track, tried to remember names and faces, but it was overwhelming. They blurred together after a while, leather and loyalty and fierce determination. Wednesday night, Silas gathered everyone for a final briefing. We ride out at 6 a.m. sharp, he said. That gives us time to get to Arthur's farm and set up before Beckman arrives at 8. I want everyone understanding the plan. We surround the property. We stay peaceful. We don't give him any excuse to call the cops. This is a show of force, not actual force. Everyone clear. Clear, the crowd responded. Arthur's going to be with me at the front, Silas continued. This is his fight. We're just backup. But make no mistake, we're not letting Beckman take that farm. Not without a hell of a fight. The crowd erupted in cheers. Arthur sat in the middle of it, feeling small and old and completely out of his depth. Diesel leaned over. You okay? No, Arthur admitted. I'm scared. Good, means you're human. But Arthur, look around. You're not alone. You're never going to be alone again. That night, Arthur couldn't sleep. He lay on a cot someone had set up for him in a back room, listening to the sounds of 300 bikers preparing for war. Not a real war, just a war of wills, of presence, of refusing to back down. He thought about Sarah, about what she'd say if she could see this. She'd probably laugh, that big, joyful laugh that used to fill their farmhouse. Then she'd say something like, Arthur Hale, you've really done it this time. Got yourself a whole army. I didn't mean to, he whispered to the darkness. But maybe that was the point. Maybe the best things in life were the ones you didn't plan. The ones that just happened because you did the right thing and let the consequences fall where they may. At 5 a.m., someone knocked on his door. Mr. Hale, it's time. Arthur got dressed, put on his best flannel shirt, the one Sarah had bought him for their 50th anniversary, pulled on his worn boots, looked at himself in the mirror, and saw an old man who was about to walk into something he didn't understand. Outside the parking lot was chaos and order all at once. 300 motorcycles being started, check prepared. 300 bikers putting on helmets, zipping jackets, testing engines. The roar was deafening. Silas handed Arthur a helmet. You're riding with me, Silas said. In the sidecar. That okay? Arthur looked at the motorcycle, at the sidecar attached to it, at Silas's confident smile. I'm 80 years old, Arthur said. I know, this is going to be fun. Despite everything, Arthur laughed. Maybe this was insane. Maybe he'd lost his mind somewhere between the blizzard and now. But he climbed into the sidecar anyway. The sun was just starting to rise when they pulled out. 300 motorcycles and formation engines roaring like thunder riding through Billings toward Arthur's farm. People came out of their houses to watch. Cars pulled over. Someone took video. Arthur sat in the sidecar and watched Montana pass by in the early morning light and thought about Sarah, and about how life could turn on a dime, and about how sometimes doing the right thing led you to places you never imagined. They were still an hour from the farm when Arthur's phone rang. Silas pulled over so Arthur could answer. It was Thomas Beckman. Mr. Hale? Beckman's voice was tight with barely controlled fury. I'm hearing rumors about some kind of biker rally at your property. I want you to know that if there's any violence, any threats, any illegal activity whatsoever, I will have every single one of you arrested. There won't be any violence, Arthur said calmly. Just some friends coming to visit. That's not illegal. Friends, you're organizing a mob. No, sir, I'm just an old man with a lot of people who care about him. We'll see you at 8 o'clock, Mr. Beckman. You have a good morning now. Arthur hung up, looked at Silas. He's scared, Arthur said, surprised. Good, Silas said. He should be. Now let's go show him exactly what he's up against. They got back on the road. The sun climbed higher, and 300 motorcycles rode on heading for a farm in rural Montana where everything was about to change. Arthur saw his farm from 2 miles away. Not because of the house or the barn or the fields he'd worked for 55 years. He saw it because of the motorcycles. They were already there lining his driveway like a river of chrome and leather. Hundreds of them. Maybe more than the 300 that had left Billings. How did they, Arthur started. Other chapters, Silas said, his voice carrying over the engine noise. They came straight here. Didn't wait for us. Word spreads fast. As they got closer, Arthur's breath caught. The bikes weren't just in his driveway anymore. They surrounded the entire property. The road leading to his farm was lined with them on both sides. His fields, the ones he'd planted wheat in last spring, had motorcycles parked in neat rows like crops. And the bikers themselves stood in formation, waiting, arms crossed, silent, an army in leather. Silas pulled up to the farmhouse. The 300 bikes behind them filed in, finding spaces completing the circle. When the last engine cut off, the silence was deafening. Arthur climbed out of the sidecar on shaky legs. He looked around at what had to be close to 500 people. 500 bikers who'd come to stand between him and Thomas Beckman. Arthur's voice failed him. He tried again. I don't know what to say. Don't say anything, a voice called out. Arthur turned. It was a massive biker he'd never seen before, easily 6'5" with a gray beard down to his chest. I'm Bear, Portland chapter. Rode all night to get here. You saved my cousin, Jax. That kid's like a son to me. So I'm here, we're all here. Thank you, Arthur managed. Don't thank us yet, Bear said. Let's see if this works first. A woman approached. She was maybe 60 with short white hair and a jacket that said President across the back. I'm Steele, Sacramento chapter. Brought 15 riders. We're positioned on the south side of your property. California, Arthur said. You came from California. Left yesterday afternoon, rode straight it through. You saved Hell's Angels, Mr. Hale. That means something from coast to coast. We take care of our own. More introductions came. Chapters from places Arthur had never been. Seattle, Denver, Albuquerque. Even one rider from Nevada who'd heard the story and ridden solo for 18 hours. Each one had the same message. You saved us. We're saving you. By 7:30, the entire property was secured. Bikers at every entrance, every corner, every approach. They'd set up a command center in Arthur's barn, radios, phones, laptops. Someone had even brought coffee and donuts. How is this my life? Arthur asked Diesel. The old biker smiled. You earned it. Now sit down and drink your coffee. Beckman will be here soon. At 7:45, Silas's radio crackled. We got movement on County Road 12. 3 vehicles approaching. 2 trucks, 1 SUV. That's him, Silas said. He turned to the assembled bikers. Everyone stay calm, stay peaceful. Let him come. Let him see what he's up against. Arthur's heart was pounding. His chest hurt. He wondered if he was having a heart attack, if he'd survived long enough to see how this ended. Breathe, Reaper said, appearing beside him. Just breathe, Mr. Hale. We got this. The vehicles appeared at the end of the driveway. They slowed, stopped. Arthur could imagine Thomas Beckman sitting in one of them, looking at 500 motorcycles, 500 bikers, all standing between him and the farm he wanted to steal. For a full minute, nothing happened. The vehicles just sat there. Then slowly they started moving again, crawling up the driveway at maybe 5 miles an hour. Here we go, Silas muttered. The lead truck stopped about 50 yards from the farmhouse. The passenger door opened. Thomas Beckman got out, and even from a distance, Arthur could see the fury on his face. Behind him, 2 sheriff's deputies emerged from the second truck. The SUV stayed closed. Beckman walked forward. The bikers didn't move. Didn't speak, just watched him come. When he was about 20 feet from Arthur, Silas stepped forward, blocking his path. "Mr. Beckman," Silas said politely. "Morning." "Get out of my way," Beckman snapped. "This is private property," Silas said. "Mr. Hale's private property. We're his guests. We have every right to be here." "You're trespassing." "No, sir. We were invited by the property owner." "That's not trespassing. That's visiting." One of the deputies stepped forward. Arthur recognized him. "Sheriff Tom Carlson, good man, used to buy eggs from Sarah back in the day." "Silas Kane," Carlson said wearily. "Should have known you'd be involved in this circus." "Sheriff," Silas said respectfully, "how's your daughter? She graduate nursing school yet?" Carlson blinked. "Yeah, last month. How'd you—" "We keep track of people we respect," Silas said. "You've always been fair with us. We appreciate that." Beckman's face was turning red. "Sheriff, I want these people removed from this property immediately. They're interfering with a legal foreclosure." "Are they breaking any laws?" Carlson asked. They're, Beckman sputtered. "Because from where I'm standing," Carlson continued, "I see a bunch of people visiting a friend. That's not illegal, even if there's a lot of them. This is obstruction of what the foreclosure isn't until tomorrow. Today's Wednesday. You're early." Arthur felt a surge of hope. Beckman had said Thursday morning. He'd moved it up a day, probably hoping to catch Arthur unprepared. "The timeline was accelerated," Beckman said tightly. "Show me the paperwork," Carlson said. Beckman pulled out a folder. Carlson took it, read through it slowly. Too slowly. Beckman was practically vibrating with impatience. "This says foreclosure proceedings begin Thursday at 8 a.m., Carlson said finally. "Today's Wednesday. You're 24 hours early." "That's a clerical error." "Then come back tomorrow with corrected paperwork," Carlson said. "Until then, these folks have every right to be here." "You can't be serious." "Mr. Beckman, I'm very serious. You want to foreclose on this property, you do it legally and on the correct day. Now I suggest you leave before this gets more complicated than it needs to be." Beckman looked at the sheriff, at the 500 bikers, at Arthur standing on his porch with Silas and Reaper flanking him like bodyguards. "This isn't over," Beckman said. "No, sir," Silas agreed. "It's not. See you tomorrow." Beckman stormed back to his truck. The vehicles turned around not easy with 500 motorcycles blocking the road and left. The bikers remained silent until the trucks disappeared from view. Then someone cheered. Within seconds, everyone was cheering. The sound was deafening. Arthur felt tears streaming down his face and didn't bother to hide them. "We won," Jack said, grabbing Arthur in a hug. "We actually won." "We didn't win yet," Silas cautioned. "He'll be back tomorrow, but we bought ourselves time." Sheriff Carlson approached Arthur. "Tom," Arthur said, "thank you." "Don't thank me yet," Carlson said. "Arthur, I did what I could today, but tomorrow, if that paperwork is in order and the date is correct, I can't stop the foreclosure. Law's the law." "I understand. Do you—" Carlson looked around at the bikers. "Because this group of yours is impressive, but it won't stop the law. If Beckman has the legal right to take this property, he'll take it. And if these folks try to stop him, I'll have to arrest them. I don't want to do that." "We won't make you," Silas said. "Sheriff, we're not criminals. We're not trying to break the law. We're just trying to show Beckman that Arthur's not alone." "I get that. I respect that. But Silas, be smart about this. Don't give me a reason to bring in the state police." "Yes, sir." Carlson tipped his hat to Arthur and left. The moment his car was gone, chaos erupted. Bikers were laughing, high-fiving, calling friends and family to report the victory. Someone turned on music. Someone else started grilling burgers on a portable grill they'd brought. It felt like a party. But Arthur couldn't shake the feeling that the real fight was still coming. Around noon, a news van pulled up. Channel 7, the same station that had been calling Arthur. A reporter got out, a young woman with perfect hair and a determined expression. "Mr. Hale," she called out. "I'm Rebecca Martinez. Can I talk to you?" Silas moved to intercept, but Arthur put a hand on his arm. "Let her come." Rebecca approached with a cameraman in tow. She looked nervous. 500 bikers tended to have that effect, but professional. "Mr. Hale, thank you for talking to me. Can you tell me what's happening here?" Arthur looked at the camera, at this young woman who wanted to turn his life into a story. He thought about Sarah, about what she'd want him to say. "I'm just trying to keep my home," Arthur said simply. My wife and I built this farm from nothing. We lived here for 55 years. She died here 3 years ago. This place is all I have left of her, and a developer wants to take it away to build condos. I heard you saved 18 bikers in Monday's blizzard. Is that true? I pulled some people out of the snow. That's all. That's all, Rebecca smiled. Mr. Hale, I've been talking to these bikers all morning. They say you risked your life, that your heart stopped, that you almost died saving strangers. Arthur felt uncomfortable. I did what anyone would do. But they didn't, Rebecca pressed. That's the point. You did. And now all these people are here to help you. That's quite a story. I suppose it is. Mr. Hale, do you have a message for Thomas Beckman for Horizon Development? Arthur thought about it. Thought about Beckman's smug face, his entitled attitude, his assumption that he could just take what he wanted. I'd say this, Arthur said slowly. Some things aren't for sale. This farm isn't for sale. My memories aren't for sale. The life I built with my wife isn't for sale. And if Mr. Beckman thinks he can bully an old man into giving up everything he loves, he's about to learn differently. Rebecca's eyes lit up. That's perfect. Can we get some footage of you and the bikers? For the next hour, Arthur found himself being filmed, standing with Silas and Reaper, sitting in the sidecar of Silas's motorcycle, walking through his fields surrounded by leather-clad bikers. It felt surreal, like watching someone else's life. More news crews arrived, local stations, then regional ones. By mid-afternoon, there were 5 different TV crews filming. The story was spreading. Arthur's phone rang. It was a number with a Washington, D.C. area code. Mr. Hale, this is Senator Patricia Chen's office. The senator saw your story on the news. She'd like to speak with you. The senator, wait, She's on the banking committee, sir. She's concerned about predatory lending practices. Your case might be relevant to legislation she's working on. Arthur found himself talking to a U.S. senator. She was sympathetic, outraged by Beckman's tactics, and promised to have her staff look into Horizon Development's business practices. When he hung up, Silas was grinning. A senator. Arthur, do you understand what's happening? This isn't just about your farm anymore. This is becoming a national story. I don't want it to be a national story. I just want my home. I know, but sometimes you don't get to choose how the fight goes. You just fight. More calls came. A lawyer from the ACLU offering free representation. A veterans organization wanting to help. 3 different GoFundMe campaigns had started without Arthur's knowledge, raising money for his legal defense. People are donating, Jack said, showing Arthur his phone. Look, $5,000 in 2 hours. 10,000. 15. I can't accept that, Arthur protested. You're not accepting it. People are giving it. There's a difference. By evening, the GoFundMe had raised $40,000. By midnight, $60,000. People from across the country sending $10, $100. Each donation came with a message, stand strong. Don't let them win. You're an American hero. Arthur sat on his porch and watched the sun set over his farm. Over 500 motorcycles and 500 people who'd given up their lives for a few days to help a stranger. Over the fields where he and Sarah had worked side by side for decades. Over the life he was fighting to keep. Reaper sat down beside him. How you holding up? I don't know, Arthur admitted. This is all so much. Too much. Yeah, but it's working. You see how Beckman looked today? He's scared. He didn't expect this. What if it's not enough? What if tomorrow he comes back with the right paperwork and the law says he can take the farm anyway? Then we deal with that tomorrow, Reaper said. But tonight, right now, you're winning. Take that. Hold on to it. They sat in silence for a while. Then Reaper spoke again, her voice quiet. I've been thinking about Hawk, about what you said that his death wasn't meaningless because it led to saving the others, which led to all this. I want to believe that, but it's hard. I know, Arthur said. When Sarah died, people told me it was part of God's plan, that there was a reason. I wanted to punch every single one of them, because what kind of plan includes watching the woman you love waste away in agony? So what made you believe it, that things happen for a reason? I didn't, not really. But I chose to live like it was true anyway, because the alternative, believing Sarah's suffering was random and meaningless, that was worse. So I chose meaning, even if I had to make it myself. Reaper was crying silently. Hawk would have fought for you tomorrow, if he'd lived. He would have been right here standing between you and Beckman. I know he would have. And Reaper, he is here, in you, in every person he loved, in the life he lived and the people he helped. Death doesn't erase that. I hope you're right. Me too, Arthur said honestly. That night, the bikers set up camp all over Arthur's property. Tents in the fields, sleeping bags in the barn. Someone brought a generator and strung up lights. It looked like a festival, like Woodstock for bikers. Arthur couldn't sleep. He walked through the camp watching these people who'd come for him. A young couple teaching their 6-year-old daughter to play guitar. An old biker doing Tai Chi in the moonlight. Jax and Melissa sitting by a fire, her head on his shoulder, his arm around her waist. Can't sleep, Diesel asked, appearing beside Arthur. Too much on my mind. Want to talk about it? They walked to the barn, sat on hay bales like they'd done that first night when Arthur had pulled 19 frozen bikers from the snow. I'm scared, Arthur admitted. Tomorrow Beckman comes back. And maybe the sheriff's right. Maybe the law says he can take my farm. And all these people, all this support, maybe it won't matter. Maybe, Diesel agreed. But Arthur, win or lose tomorrow, you've already changed things. You've shown people what it means to stand up, to fight for what matters, to not go quietly. Sarah always said I was stubborn. Stubborn's good. Stubborn keeps you alive. They sat in comfortable silence. Then Diesel spoke again. I'm 72 years old, been riding for 50 years. I've seen a lot in this life, good and bad. But what you did Monday night, pulling us from that storm, that's the best thing I've ever seen a human being do. You didn't think about it, didn't calculate the risk. You just did what was right. I didn't have a choice. Everyone has a choice. Most people choose to look away. You didn't. And tomorrow when Beckman comes, we're not looking away either. We're here, all of us, and that matters. Around 2 in the morning, Arthur finally fell asleep in his own bed. He dreamed of Sarah. She was young again, smiling, standing in their wheat field in a summer dress. You did good, Arthur, she said. I'm scared, Sarah. I don't know if I can win this. Doesn't matter if you win. Matters that you fight. You taught these people something. Taught them that kindness matters. That one person can make a difference. That's bigger than this farm. But I want the farm. I want our home. I know, honey. And maybe you'll keep it. Maybe you won't. But either way, you stood up. You didn't quit. I'm so proud of you. Arthur woke with tears on his face. The sun was just starting to rise. Thursday morning, the day that would decide everything. He got dressed slowly. His best shirt, his good boots. If he was going to lose his farm, he'd lose it with dignity. Outside the camp was already awake. Bikers making coffee, checking bikes, preparing. Silas found Arthur on the porch. Beckman called. He's coming at 8. Said he has all the proper paperwork this time. Said he's bringing the sheriff, a judge, and a moving crew. So, this is it. This is it. Silas paused. Arthur, no matter what happens today, I want you to know what you did for us we'll never forget. We'll never stop being grateful. I know. And Silas, what you've done for me these past few days, I'll never forget either. They shook hands. Then Silas pulled Arthur into a hug, this hard man who'd become family, and Arthur hugged him back. At 7:30, more vehicles started arriving. Not Beckman, something else. News trucks, lots of them. National networks this time, CNN, Fox, NBC. They'd heard about the standoff and they wanted footage. Jesus, Silas muttered. The whole country's watching. A limousine pulled up. Arthur blinked. A limousine. A man got out. Expensive suit. Confident walk. He approached Arthur with his hand extended. Mr. Hale, I'm Marcus Webb. I represent the Montana State Attorney General's office. The AG asked me to come personally. Why? Arthur asked. Because what's happening here, a developer using questionable foreclosure tactics to force an elderly veteran off his land, that's exactly the kind of predatory lending practice our office is investigating. We'd like to file an injunction. Stop the foreclosure pending a full investigation into Horizon Development's business practices. Arthur's knees went weak. You can do that. We can try. I've already filed the paperwork with the county court. We're waiting for the judge to rule. When will we know? Webb checked his watch. Any minute now. The judge is reviewing it as we speak. At 7:55, Beckman's convoy appeared. 3 trucks, 2 SUVs, a moving van, Sheriff Carlson's patrol car, and behind them a black Mercedes that Arthur guessed held the judge. The vehicle stopped at the edge of the property. Beckman got out. He looked at the 500 bikers, at the news cameras, at Arthur standing on his porch with Silas and Reaper and Diesel and Jax and all the people who'd become family. Then he smiled. It was his predator smile, the one that said he'd already won. Sheriff Carlson approached. "Mr. Hale, I'm sorry, but the paperwork is in order. The foreclosure is legal. I have to ask these people to leave so Horizon Development can take possession." "Sheriff, wait." Webb stepped forward. "I'm Marcus Webb, Attorney General's office. We filed an injunction." "I know," Carlson said. "The judge just ruled. Denied. Insufficient evidence for an emergency stay. The foreclosure stands." Arthur felt the ground drop out from under him. All of this, all these people, all this effort, and he was losing anyway. "No," Jack said. "No, this isn't right." "Son, step back," Carlson said firmly. "I don't want to arrest anyone today, but the law is the law." Beckman walked forward, triumph written all over his face. "Mr. Hale, you have 1 hour to remove your personal belongings. After that, this property belongs to Horizon Development. I suggest you start packing." Arthur looked at Silas, at Reaper, at all these people who tried so hard to save him. "Stand down," Arthur said quietly. "He's right. The law says he wins." "Arthur, no," Silas started. "Yes, I won't let you get arrested for me. I won't let you throw away your lives. You've done enough, more than enough, but this fight is over." Beckman's smile widened. "Smart man. Sheriff, if you'll help Mr. Hale gather his things." "Wait," a new voice. Everyone turned. An older man was getting out of the Mercedes. He wore a judge's robes and a stern expression. He walked through the crowd of bikers like Moses parting the Red Sea. "Judge Morrison," Beckman said, "thank you for coming to oversee." "Mr. Beckman, shut up," Judge Morrison said sharply. He turned to Arthur. "You're Arthur Hale." "Yes, sir." "The man who saved 18 people in Monday's blizzard, the man who nearly died pulling strangers from the snow." "I did what anyone would do, sir." "No, you didn't. You did what almost no one would do, and now Thomas Beckman wants to take your home." Morrison turned to Beckman. "I read the foreclosure paperwork. It's technically legal. But Mr. Beckman, I also read the investigative report the Attorney General's office compiled overnight. Your company has done this to 47 other property owners in Montana over the past 2 years, forcing accelerated foreclosures, using legal technicalities to steal family homes." "That's not," Beckman started. "I said shut up. I'm not finished." Morrison pulled out a document. "This morning at 7:45, I received an emergency petition from the Montana State Attorney General's office requesting a temporary restraining order against Horizon Development Corporation pending a full investigation into predatory lending practices. I denied that petition because the evidence presented was insufficient." Arthur's heart sank again. "However," Morrison continued, "at 7:50 I received a second petition, this one from the U.S. Senator Patricia Chen's office. Senator Chen sits on the banking committee. She's launching a federal investigation into Horizon Development's practices across 5 states, and she's requesting that all foreclosure actions be frozen pending that investigation." Beckman's face went white. "You can't." "I can, and I am. Mr. Beckman, I'm issuing a temporary restraining order against this foreclosure. It's frozen for 90 days pending the federal investigation. If that investigation finds wrongdoing, and based on what I've seen, this foreclosure will be permanently voided and Horizon Development will face federal charges." The silence was absolute. Then someone cheered. Then everyone cheered. The sound was deafening. Beckman was shaking with rage. "This is political interference. I'll appeal this too." "Appeal all you want," Morrison said. "But until you do this, farm stays with Mr. Hale. Sheriff, you can escort Mr. Beckman off the property now." Carlson was trying not to smile. "Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Beckman, you heard the judge. Time to go." Beckman looked at Arthur with pure hatred. "This isn't over." "Yeah," Silas said quietly. "It is." Beckman got in his Mercedes. The convoy turned around and left. The moment they were gone, 500 bikers erupted in celebration. People were crying, hugging, cheering. Someone started their motorcycle and revved the engine in triumph. Others followed until the whole farm was shaking with the roar. Arthur stood on his porch in shock. He couldn't process it. Couldn't believe it. We won, Jack said, tears streaming down his face. Mr. Hale, we actually won. Judge Morrison approached Arthur. Mr. Hale, I want you to know something. The law isn't always just. Sometimes it serves the powerful at the expense of the powerless. But sometimes it gets things right. Today it got things right. You keep your home. And Beckman answers for what he's done. Thank you, Arthur managed. Thank you so much. Don't thank me. Thank Senator Chen. Thank the Attorney General. Thank these people who showed up to stand with you. They're the ones who made this visible, who made it matter. Morrison left. Arthur looked at the 500 bikers who had saved his life just as surely as he'd saved theirs. I don't know what to say, he told them. Don't say anything, Rose from Spokane said. Just know that you're family now. Forever. You need anything you call us. Any chapter, any state. We're there. Same Bear from Portland echoed. You saved lives. We saved your home. But the debt isn't paid. It never will be. You're one of us now. The celebration went on all day. News crews interviewed Arthur, interviewed the bikers, turned the story into something that would air across the country that night. The story of an 80-year-old farmer who saved 18 strangers and was saved in return by 500 more. But for Arthur, the best moment came late that afternoon. The crowds had thinned. Most of the bikers were packing up to head home. Jax and Melissa were sitting on the porch swing, the same swing Arthur and Sarah had sat on 1,000 summer evenings. Mr. Hale, Jack said, I meant what I said before about the wedding, June 14th. You're invited, front row. I'll be there, Arthur promised. And Mr. Hale, Melissa smiled through tears, we'd like you to walk me down the aisle. My father died when I was 16. I don't have anyone to give me away, and you gave Jax back to me, so I'd like you to be the one. Arthur had to sit down. His chest was too tight, his eyes too wet. I'd be honored. That evening as the sun set over the farm, Arthur had fought so hard to keep Silas found him in the barn. The same barn where this had all started 4 days ago. We're heading out tomorrow morning, Silas said, back to our lives. But Arthur, this isn't goodbye. We'll be back to check on you, to help with the farm, to make sure you're okay. You don't have to. We want to. You're family, and family takes care of each other. They stood in the barn that still smelled like horses and hay and history, where 19 frozen bikers had lain dying, where Arthur had given everything to save them, where everything had changed. I keep thinking about Sarah, Arthur said, about what she'd say if she could see all this. What would she say? She'd say, Arthur Hale, I told you kindness matters. I told you it comes back around. Then she'd make me dinner and tell me she's proud of me. His voice cracked. God, I miss her. She'd be proud, Silas said. I never met her, but I know she'd be proud. What you did saving us, fighting for your home, showing people what it means to stand up, that's something to be proud of. I was just trying to do the right thing. That's all any of us can do. And sometimes if we're lucky, the right thing wins. That night, Arthur slept in his own bed, in his own house, on his own farm. The farm he'd built with Sarah. The farm he'd almost lost. The farm that was his again. And for the first time in 3 years since the day Sarah died, he didn't dream of losing her. He dreamed of keeping her, of all the years they'd had, of the love that had filled this place, of the home they'd built together. When he woke up Thursday morning, no Friday morning, now the bikers were already packing up, engines roaring to life, tents coming down, 500 people heading back to their lives. But before they left, they came to say goodbye. Each one, each handshake, each hug, each promise to stay in touch. Jax was one of the last to leave. June 14th, he reminded Arthur. Don't forget. I won't forget. And Mr. Hale, I'm naming my first kid after you. Boy or girl doesn't matter. They're going to be Arthur or Arthurine. They're going to know the story of the man who saved their dad's life. You don't have to do that. I want to. We all want our kids to know about you, about what you did, about what happened here. By noon, they were all gone. The farm was quiet again. Just Arthur and his memories and the life he'd fought so hard to keep. He stood on his porch and looked at the fields where 500 motorcycles had been parked yesterday. At the barn where 19 lives had been saved. At the home he and Sarah had shared. His phone rang. It was Senator Chen. Mr. Hale, I wanted to update you. Our investigation into Horizon Development has uncovered massive fraud. Beckman's going to prison. His company's being dissolved. And all 47 foreclosures he forced through illegally are being reversed. Those families are getting their homes back because of what happened here. Because you stood up. Because you didn't quit. Because you made it visible. Mr. Hale, you didn't just save your farm. You saved 47 other families' homes. You stopped a predator. You made a difference. After she hung up, Arthur sat on his porch swing, Sarah's swing, and cried. Not from sadness this time, from relief, from gratitude, from the overwhelming weight of everything that had happened. He'd saved 18 lives in a blizzard. They'd saved him in return, and together they'd saved 47 families they'd never met. Kindness had come back around, just like Sarah always said it would. The first week after the bikers left was the loneliest Arthur had felt since Sarah died. The farm was too quiet, too empty. He'd gotten used to the sound of engines, of voices, of life filling every corner of his property. Now it was just him again. He tried to fall back into his old routine. Feed the chickens, check the fences, sit on the porch and watch the sun go down. But everything felt different now. The silence wasn't peaceful anymore. It was heavy. On day 8, his phone rang. It was Diesel. "How you doing, old man?" Arthur felt something in his chest loosen. "I'm all right. Quiet here." "Too quiet." "Yeah, too quiet." "Well, I got news that might fix that. Silas is organizing a work crew. We're coming back next weekend to fix up your place. Barn needs repairs. House could use paint. Fields need tending. You up for some company?" Arthur's eyes burned. "You don't have to do that." "We know. We want to. So clear your schedule, Arthur. We're coming whether you like it or not." They came. Not 500 this time, but 50. 50 bikers with tool belts and paintbrushes and a determination to restore Arthur's farm to something better than it had been in years. Silas showed up with lumber. Reaper brought paint samples. Jax and Melissa arrived with a truck full of supplies and matching work gloves. "Where do we start?" Jax asked. Arthur looked at his farm, at the peeling paint, the sagging barn door, the overgrown fields. Work Sarah would have insisted on doing years ago if she'd been well enough. Work Arthur had let slide because he was one old man who couldn't do it alone. "The barn," Arthur said. "Let's start with the barn." They worked all weekend. The bikers moved like a construction crew that had been doing this for years. Maybe they had. Reaper turned out to be a skilled carpenter. Diesel knew electrical work. A woman named Crystal was a professional painter who made Arthur's farmhouse look 20 years younger. By Sunday evening, the barn had a new roof. The house had fresh paint. The fences were repaired. The fields were tilled and ready for spring planting. Arthur stood in his driveway and looked at what they'd accomplished in 2 days. His farm looked alive again, looked loved. "Sarah would have liked this," he said to Silas. "Yeah, tell me about her. What was she like?" So Arthur told him, told all of them over dinner that night around a bonfire in his yard. He told them about Sarah's laugh, about how she sang off-key while cooking, about how she'd leave notes in his lunch pail every single day for 55 years, about how she faced cancer with more courage than he'd ever managed. "She sounds amazing," Melissa said, wiping her eyes. "She was. She really was." "I wish I could have met her," Reaper said. "Me too," Arthur said. "She would have loved you, all of you. She always believed people were basically good. I used to argue with her about it, but she'd say, 'Arthur, you watch. When it matters, people show up.' Guess she was right." "She was definitely right," Silas said. They left Sunday night with promises to return, and they did. Not every weekend, but often enough that Arthur stopped feeling lonely. Often enough that his farm became a gathering place for the Montana Hells Angels. A safe harbor, a home. 3 weeks after the foreclosure was stopped, Arthur got a call from Marcus Webb at the Attorney General's office. "Mr. Hale, I wanted to update you personally. Thomas Beckman has been formally charged with 43 counts of fraud, racketeering, and illegal foreclosure practices. He's looking at 20 years minimum." "Good," Arthur said, surprising himself with the venom in his voice. "There's more. Horizon Development is being liquidated. Their assets are being used to compensate the families they defrauded. Mr. Hale, you're entitled to compensation for the emotional distress and legal costs you incurred." "I don't want their money." "I understand, but there's also the matter of your mortgage. The original loan was sold to Horizon Development by First Montana Bank. Our investigation revealed that sale was part of a fraudulent scheme. The loan is being voided, Mr. Hale. Your mortgage debt no longer exists. The farm is yours, free and clear. Arthur had to sit down. What? Your farm is paid off. You don't owe anyone anything. It's yours. After he hung up, Arthur walked to Sarah's grave. She was buried on a hill overlooking the wheat fields under an oak tree they'd planted together 40 years ago. Sarah, he said, sitting on the grass beside her headstone, the farm's ours again, really ours. No mortgage, no debt, just like when we started. His voice broke. I wish you were here to see it. The wind picked up rustling through the oak leaves. Arthur chose to believe it was Sarah answering. May arrived. With it came spring planting. Arthur stood in his field with a seed spreader looking at acres of land he needed to plant. Too much for one old man. His phone rang. It was Silas. What are you doing this weekend? Planting, or trying to. Got about 40 acres of wheat to get in the ground. Not anymore, you don't. We're coming. Bring in equipment. You just tell us where you want the seeds. They came. 20 bikers with tractors and planters and experience Arthur didn't know they had. They planted his entire crop in one weekend. Work that would have taken Arthur months. Where did you learn to farm? Arthur asked Diesel as they worked side by side. Grew up on a farm in Idaho. Ran away at 16, joined the club at 18. But my dad taught me good before I left. Never thought I'd use it again. Diesel smiled. Feels good to have dirt under my fingernails again. The wheat grew. Arthur tended it with help from bikers who showed up unannounced on weekends. They became part of his routine, part of his life. June 14th arrived faster than Arthur expected. Jack's and Melissa's wedding day. Arthur put on his best suit, the one he'd worn to Sarah's funeral 3 years ago. He drove 2 hours to Bozeman to a small church filled with bikers and flowers and love. Melissa waited in the back room, beautiful in white lace. When she saw Arthur, she burst into tears. You came, she said. Of course I came. Wouldn't miss this for the world. I'm so nervous. What if I trip? What if I forget my vows? What if... Hey, Arthur said gently. You see that boy out there, Jax? He loves you more than anything in this world. You could trip, forget every word, show up in pajamas. He'd still think you were perfect. So take a breath. Enjoy this. It's your day. She hugged him tight. Thank you for everything, for giving him back to me. Arthur walked her down the aisle. He saw Jax's face when he first saw Melissa. Pure joy, pure love. The look of a man who'd almost lost everything and got a second chance. Arthur knew that look. He'd felt it every day with Sarah. The ceremony was beautiful. The reception was chaos in the best way, bikers dancing toasts that made everyone cry, laughter that filled the room. Silas found Arthur during a slow song. You did good, old man, real good. They're going to be happy, Arthur said, watching Jax and Melissa dance. Yeah, they are, because of you. All I did was pull a kid out of the snow. No, Silas said seriously. You did so much more than that. You showed us what it means to be decent, to be kind, to be the person who doesn't walk away. He paused. Red would have liked you. The biker I told you about, the one who saved me, he would have really liked you. I wish I could have met him. Me too. But Arthur, you're carrying on what he started. Saving people, changing lives, paying it forward. That's his legacy, and now it's yours too. Summer came. Arthur's wheat grew tall and golden. He worked the farm with help from his new family. Because that's what they were now, family. Not by blood, but by choice. By loyalty. By love. In July, Reaper showed up at his door crying. Arthur made coffee and waited for her to speak. It's Hawk's birthday, she finally said. He would have been 44 today. And I needed to be somewhere he mattered, somewhere people remember him. Come on, Arthur said. He took her to the barn, to the spot where he'd laid Hawk's body that first night. They sat on hay bales and Reaper talked about her brother, about childhood memories, about the man he'd been, about how much she missed him. He's not forgotten, Arthur said. Every time I come in this barn, I think about him, about all of you, about that night. Really, it's about thou. Really, Hawk's part of this place now, part of its story. That matters. Thank you, Reaper whispered. Thank you for trying to save him, for caring even though he was already gone. She came back every month after that. On Hawk's birthday, on the anniversary of his death, on random days when grief hit too hard, Arthur always had coffee ready, always had time to listen. August brought harvest. Again the bikers came. They harvested Arthur's wheat like they'd planted it with efficiency and laughter and the kind of teamwork that came from being family. The harvest was good, better than Arthur had seen in 10 years. He sold the wheat and made more money than he'd made in the last 3 years combined. "What are you going to do with it?" Diesel asked. Arthur thought about it, thought about Sarah, about what she would have wanted. "I'm setting up a fund," he decided, "for families facing foreclosure, to help them fight back, to make sure what Beckman tried to do to me doesn't happen to anyone else." "Sarah would be proud," Diesel said. "Yeah, I think she would." The Sarah Hale Family Farm Fund started with Arthur's harvest money. It grew when the story went public. People donated, small amounts from regular folks who believed in the cause, larger amounts from organizations fighting predatory lending. By September, the fund had helped 3 families keep their homes. By December, 12 families. Each family Arthur helped sent thank you letters. Each one broke his heart and healed it at the same time, because he was making a difference, because kindness was rippling outward in ways he'd never imagined. Christmas came. Arthur expected to spend it alone like he had the past 3 years. Instead, his phone rang at 7 in the morning. "Merry Christmas, old man," Silas said. "Get dressed, we're coming over." "Who's we?" "Everyone." They arrived at noon, 50 bikers with presents and food and enough Christmas spirit to fill Arthur's small farmhouse to bursting. They cooked dinner together, played games, sang carols that sounded strange coming from leather-clad bikers but somehow felt right anyway. Jax and Melissa announced they were expecting a baby, due in June. A girl. "We're naming her Sarah," Melissa said, looking at Arthur. "After your wife, after the woman who taught you to be kind. We want our daughter to know that story, to carry on that legacy." Arthur couldn't speak, could only nod and wipe his eyes and accept the hug Melissa offered. That night, after everyone left, Arthur sat on his porch and looked at the stars, at the farm that was his, at the life he'd rebuilt, at the family he'd found. "We did good, Sarah," he said to the night sky. "I kept my promise. I kept living, kept being kind. And look what came back." The winter was mild. Arthur turned 81 in November and barely noticed. He was too busy helping run the fund, too busy with visits from bikers, too busy living to worry about aging. In March, he got a call from Senator Chen. "Mr. Hale, I wanted to thank you personally. The legislation we passed last month, the Predatory Lending Protection Act, that was because of you, because your story made people pay attention. We're projecting it will help over 10,000 families in the next 5 years. 10,000 families. Because Arthur had pulled 18 people from the snow. The math was impossible. The reality was undeniable. April brought rain and new growth. Arthur planted his fields again with help from his family. The routine had become tradition. Spring planting with the bikers, summer tending, fall harvest, winter planting, a cycle of life and work and community. In May, a year after the standoff with Beckman, the bikers organized a memorial ride. 500 of them showed up at Arthur's farm, not to fight this time, just to remember, to celebrate. They rode together through Montana's back roads, Arthur in Silas's sidecar, again the whole state watching this impossible parade of motorcycles and one old farmer who'd changed everything. The ride ended at Hawk's grave. They'd buried him in a veterans cemetery in Great Falls. His headstone read, "Hawk Morrison, brother, Hell's Angel, never forgotten." Reaper placed flowers. Others did too. They stood in silence for Hawk and for the night that had changed all their lives. "He didn't die for nothing," Reaper said. "His death led to all this. To Arthur, to the family we became, to the people we helped. It mattered." "It mattered," they echoed. June came again. Little Sarah was born on the 14th, exactly 1 year after her parents' wedding. Arthur held her in the hospital, this tiny life named after his wife, and felt time collapse. Past and present and future, all tangled together in the weight of this baby girl. "She's perfect," he told Jax and Melissa. "She is," Jax agreed, "and she's going to grow up knowing about you, about the man who saved her dad, about what real courage looks like. I'm not courageous, I just did what was right. That's what courage is, Mr. Hale, doing what's right even when it's hard." Summer rolled on. Arthur's farm thrived. His fund helped more families. His life was full in ways it hadn't been since Sarah died. In August, on the anniversary of that first night in the blizzard, Arthur invited everyone to the farm. All 18 who'd survived. All the chapters who'd helped. All the family he'd found. They gathered in his barn, the barn where it had all started, where he'd dragged 19 frozen bodies, where one man died and 18 lived, where everything changed. Arthur stood before them, 81 years old and stronger than he'd felt in years. "I've been thinking a lot lately," he said, "about that night, about why things happened the way they did. And I think I finally understand." He paused, looking at each face, at Silas and Reaper and Diesel and Jax, at Rose and Bear and Snake and all the others. Sarah used to say that kindness creates more kindness, that one good act ripples outward in ways you can't predict. I never fully believed her, but I do now. His voice grew stronger. "I saved 18 lives that night, but you saved mine right back. And together we saved 47 families from losing their homes. We passed legislation that will protect 10,000 more. We created something bigger than any of us. All because I wouldn't walk past people who needed help. All because you wouldn't forget the debt you owed." Arthur looked at them through tears he didn't bother to hide. Sarah was right. Kindness does come back. Love does multiply. And family, real family, isn't about blood. It's about showing up, about standing together, about refusing to let each other face the hard things alone. "You're not alone," Silas said. "None of us are. Not anymore." "No," Arthur agreed. "We're not, and we never will be again. Because this," he gestured at all of them, at the barn, at the farm, at the impossible family they'd become. "This is what Sarah always believed in. This is what she knew was possible if we just chose kindness over fear, love over indifference, action over apathy." He took a breath, feeling Sarah's presence like she was standing right beside him. "She'd be so proud of all of us, of what we built together, of the lives we've changed, of the family we've become. And I promise you, I promise all of you, I'm going to spend every day I have left honoring what she taught me, what you've shown me. I'm going to keep being kind, keep helping people, keep standing up when it matters." "We all will," Reaper said fiercely. "Together." "Together," they echoed. That night, as the sun set over Arthur's farm, he sat on his porch swing and thought about the journey. From that brutal winter night when he'd stepped into the blizzard alone to this moment surrounded by hundreds of people who'd become family. From nearly dying in the snow to building a life more full than he'd ever imagined. He thought about Sarah, about Hawk, about every person who'd been touched by that one night of courage and kindness. He thought about little Sarah growing up hearing this story, about the families his fund had saved, about the legislation protecting thousands more, about the ripples that kept spreading outward, touching lives he'd never meet. His phone rang. It was Diesel. "You okay, old man?" "Yeah," Arthur said and meant it. "I'm good, really good." "Good, because we're planning something for next month. Big ride through 5 states, raising money for your fund. You in?" Arthur smiled. At 81, he was about to go on a motorcycle tour through 5 states with a bunch of Hell's Angels bikers. Sarah would have laughed herself sick. "I'm in," he said, "because that's what family did. They showed up for each other. They kept choosing kindness. They kept paying it forward. And sometimes if you were very lucky, the life you saved you right back. And the kindness you gave created a family you never knew you needed. And the choice to do the right thing in one frozen moment changed everything that came after." Arthur Hale had stepped into a blizzard to save strangers, and those strangers had given him back his life, his home, his purpose, and a family that would stand with him until the very end. That was the power of kindness. That was the promise of showing up. That was what happened when one person refused to walk away from people who needed help, and those people refused to forget the debt they owed. The story that began in a Montana blizzard with one old man's stubborn courage had become something bigger than any of them could have imagined. A testament to the truth that Sarah Hale had known all along. Kindness isn't just tested when it's hardest. It's proven when it comes back around, multiplied beyond measure, carried forward by people who refuse to let good acts die in the snow. And Arthur Hale, 81 years old, surrounded by family he'd saved, and who'd saved him in return, finally understood that some debts could never be fully repaid, But they could be honored, passed forward, and transformed into something that would outlive them all. A legacy of courage, compassion, and the unshakable truth that one person choosing kindness can change the world.